Hello and welcome to episode 2 of Indies in Depth, the podcast taking a behind-the-scenes look at the indie game industry with the people who work in it. I'm Cressup, your host. Apologies, this has been a bit of a longer time coming from episode 1. There were some issues with my computer, they're all fixed now, and we're back on with the episodes. This episode, I chat with Canadian games developer Julia Minamata and the editor of the indie game magazine Debug, Andrew Dickinson, about the benefits of Twitch for indie games, how to stand out from the crowd with your game, and why meeting in person is still worth it for devs. And don't forget to check me out on Twitch. I'm twitch.tv/Cressup. That's where I play a lot of indie games as well, so do check me out there. On with the episode. So thank you very much to my two guests who are here with me today. I really appreciate you guys coming on. It's great to chat indie games with you. We've got Julia Minamata, who is a developer who's based in Canada and has been working on an EGA text parser mystery adventure game called The Crimson Diamond. It's coming out the 15th of August. I'm very, very excited about this. Julia, thank you very much for joining.
Well, thank you for inviting me. This is good. I like this.
Good. I'm glad you like it. That's good. That always helps. And we've also got Andrew Dickinson, who is editor-in-chief of Debug magazine, which is a UK publication. It's focused exclusively on indie games. So I think I've got, the right person here in that case, Andrew. I think it's fair to say.
Yeah, if we're talking indies, I think it's
yes, yeah.
Good choice. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I mean, this is all about just like getting people together, developers, people in the media, everyone in the industry, and just talking about what they do, celebrating what they do, and also hearing a bit about the kind of insider insights about how they do it. So I think before I kind of get into that and what both of your sort of projects, I wanted to maybe just have a little bit of a chat about what you guys are playing, if you're playing anything. I know it's a bit difficult with devs because often they aren't playing things because they're making their own game, or if there's anything you've got on your wish list. Andrew, I don't know if there's anything you've got on at the moment that you're playing or you're really enjoying.
Goodness, yeah, I mean, lots. I mean, I have to play a lot for the magazine, obviously.
Yes.
So at the moment, I think the biggest thing that I've been playing is Still Wakes the Deep, which is
me too.
Such an incredible game. Yes, so good. The Chinese Room, who are also based in Brighton, like me, so that's quite cool. But it's like a really fantastic game, like the atmosphere they create, like the 70s oil rig, all Scottish well, not all Scottish, but like majority Scottish cast, and they're so well voice acted. It's just incredible. That's what I've been playing most, and a little bit of Blueprints as well, which was just on Steam Next Fest. I think the demo just came down recently, but yeah, it's that's also really, really good.
Oh, and what's that about? I think I've missed that one. I don't think I've heard about that.
So Blueprints is like it's like a procedurally generated roguelike thing where basically you're this kid who inherits his grandfather's house. And the only way that you can inherit it properly is if you discover there's 45 rooms in this house, but the only way that your grandfather will let you inherit it is if you discover the hidden 46th room, and you go through each room, and every time you open a door, you get a choice of 3 rooms that you can go into. And each one, like, it kind of changes the way that the house is, and there's puzzles in some of the rooms. And it's like, it goes much deeper than you'd think as well. There's like puzzles within puzzles and hidden writing and all sorts of stuff. It's so good.
Oh, yeah. So I missed that at Next Fest. I do remember that being mentioned, but yeah. And is that out now to play fully, or is it just the demo still?
No. So the demo was on Next Fest, and actually, I mean, we're recording the 2nd of July. It came down on the 1st of July. They extended the demo because it was so popular, but it just came down yesterday. But yeah, definitely go check it out. And when hopefully they'll bring a demo out again. I'm not sure when it's releasing, but I think it is this year.
Okay. Okay, that's good. I haven't missed it then. All right.
No.
Now, talking about Steam Next Fest, obviously, Julie, you had a demo for your game, which is also coming out very soon. I'll ask you, obviously, about that in a little bit. But do you get time to play anything as well, or see people play things?
Well, actually, that's funny you say that because, I'm a Twitch streamer. I know you're on Twitch as well. And there's a huge retro Twitch stream community that play so many different things. I've discovered so many new games, new old games that way. And I do the same as well. Where I know it's so important Even though it's hard to make time to play games, I have been playing games, but I've been playing games that are a little bit older. So it's not stuff you're going to see at Next Fest. I've been playing a lot of EGA adventure games on my
That
stream
makes
near the end of
sense.
my streams. And so these games, so the one I'm playing right now is from 1995. It's called Lord Avalot d'Argent, and it was made by a company called Thorsoft of Letchworth, and they're from Letchworth Garden City
Oh, yes.
in the UK.
I
So
was going to say,
um,
is that Letchworth?
yes, it is, and so the developer Martin Thurman, she made a first game called Denarius Avaricious Sextus for between the ages of 12 and 14. So she's kind of a genius.
Wow.
And then she made the sequel, Lord Avalon d'Argent, which I'm playing now. And the best thing about it is one of those real nice things about the internet is she found my playthrough of Denarius. And then she contacted me, and I had her on, and she talked about Letchworth Garden City and what
Ah,
an unusual place that was to grow up, and stories about just the development of the game development, explaining some of the jokes because some of them were very like regional jokes and
oh, right.
everything
Yeah.
in it. So that was great. And the thing about playing the old games is I'm making a game that does look old, but I'm trying my best to kind of sand the edges down a little bit and make it a little bit easier to play. And playing the old stuff really reminds me of those friction points of things like, ooh, that's something I want to make sure that I don't have in my game, or that's something I want to improve. And I just really love them as well. Like I love that for a lot of those teams, they're really small teams or they're solo developers, even back in those days. And of course, it's EGA graphics, which I love so much. And so I've been playing that, which is it's a little bit obscure, but it's wonderful. I just love that unique perspective of just one person making a thing.
And is it like a sort of point and click style thing, or is it a text parser thing, or?
Well, that's the best part is I that's something I need to ask Martin all about because it's everything.
Oh,
It's got a point and click interface, so you can actually click and hold on the screen and the person will waypoint to that point. You can also use the arrow keys. You can use a joystick.
oh wow.
And you also, there's compass on the UI that you can use the compass. You can click on the little compass arrows to actually navigate as well. And it's a text parser as well, and it's got contextual menu. So it's got a menu bar along the top where if you click on person, it'll just show you all the people in the scene, and then you can click on that, and then you can click on another like a drop-down menu that's going to auto-populate with exam and talk to. It's the most amazing and comprehensive and unique UI. That's another thing I love about these old games is nothing was set in stone at
Yeah.
that time. Everyone kind of was doing whatever, and whatever stuck, and it's wonderful to see something that's just that different that I've never experienced before, and it works really well
Mm.
actually.
Oh, I'll definitely check that out. That sounds really
Yeah,
cool. I have never heard of that game before, so that's why I love about this kind of thing, to
yeah.
just like hear about stuff. For myself, I am also playing Still Wakes the Deep, which is, as you said, Andrew, just being released. This Scottish oil rig horror game. Loving the voice acting in that because it's, I think, like you said, mainly Scottish voice actors. I think what's quite funny as well is they do use it. It's set, I think, is it the 70s? I think the late
Yeah.
70s.
Mhm.
And they do use a lot of Scottish slang, but the subtitles that they have is international English. So if there's like perhaps Americans or Canadians or people who might not get all the Scottish slang, it is there for you to understand. Even I was the one or two words I was like, I don't know what they're saying here, but yeah, it's a really cool game. And it's about sort of 5 or 6 hours long, and yeah, I've also been enjoying that. I've also been playing Elden Ring. I'll be honest, I've been playing a lot of that because the DLC has just come out. So I'm just trying to level up my character a little bit because I've heard the DLC is incredibly hard. So yeah, I've got a plenty of time to do that still, I think. But Julie, I mean, I think I'd be interested in first, like, starting off with you, and let's get into your game. You know, you'd be talking about your love of kind of EGA. I think for first of all, I guess for people who might not know, what is EGA and why is it something that you're really into, and why did you decide to make a game based around that? Lots of
EG
questions there, but
Yes. Well, no, no, no. This is good. This is good. EGA is it's a color palette and it's a limited color palette, and it could actually be limited to any particular 16 colors. But the default EGA color palette is a particular 16 color. It's a very unique type of palette. It's not a particularly like artist friendly palette, I'd say. It's got like four blues and one brown, one yellow. You really have to think hard about what you're going to do with your limited colors. And it came about in like the DOS games days where they were just excited to get that many colors up on the screen at that time.
So they were just like,
And
let's do them all.
well, yeah, let's do as many as we can. Let's make them
Yeah.
as bright as possible. And that's kind of what they did. They just made the brightest possible palette they could. And that was all they had. They had, in terms of memory, the graphics was the thing that was taking up absolutely the most space on disks and everything at the time. But then that got superseded by VGA later, which is 256 colors, and you could have painted backgrounds and all that. So people would scan backgrounds in with 256 colors, and then you would downsample the color palette, so you'd kind of get a painterly look. But EGA was kind of a pixel perfect, alter crisp. If it was a Sierra game, vector-based artworks that you could see every pixel absolutely clearly on your screen. It wasn't downsampled or anything like that, and that's what I loved about it. It's super clear, super bright. You could see everything. And just on a weird game development note, a game design note, the backgrounds and the sprites and the items that you could interact with all were seamlessly integrated in EGA. In VGA, they still had limitations, so you had painted backgrounds, and then you had like pixelated items that you could then interact with, and it kind of gave you more of a kind of a cartoon look where you'd have a painted background and then something that was obviously something you could interact with. And I love the fact that in EGA everything is just really integrated and it just looks like one world. So that's one of the reasons I like it. But honestly, the biggest reason I like it is because it hit at that time. I think everyone has this thing where you're a certain age and then you encounter something and then it just kind of sticks with you as the thing that you love so much. And so for me, EGA was that. It was the perfect time for me to meet it. And when I started making my game, my first thought was, I want to make something that made me feel like that, and I want to make other people feel that way when they play it. And that's the reason that I started using EGA to begin with. Yeah.
Andrew, have you played any of these kind of games like Sierra games? I guess it's things like King's Quest, isn't it, Julia, and things like that. Have you ever played any of those kind of more retro style games?
Do you know what? No, not I haven't.
And that's
actually.
fine, by the way.
There's just such a wide variety of
Yeah.
games, and it's like everybody has their thing, right? Like my partner is like super into point and click, so potentially did play those kind of games, but I was kind of more platformers, all that kind of stuff. So they interest me now. I've seen a lot of incredible like text parser, point and click style games. But yeah, back in the past, no, was not my thing, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's. I mean, I'm starting to get more into that kind of thing because I was into adventure games as a kid, but it was more sort of the pixel art, more kind of the LucasArts stuff. I wasn't really as big into the Sierra stuff, and now I'm kind of learning all of that and learning there was all this side of things and getting into them. But I mean, yeah, tell us a bit about the Crimson Diamond then, and the story behind that.
Yeah, it was it kind of just started as a pixel art experiment. I was a freelance illustrator for 10 years for magazines, actually, magazines and newspapers, and that's what I would do. But I was having trouble kind of building a career out of that. It's super competitive, and I mean, I'm sure Andrew, you could talk all about how hard it is to take a print publication in this day and age and make it
Yeah.
work. I'm sure you have many, many stories about that. But yeah, I mean, it got really hard. The art budgets were slashed and art departments were gutted, and the magazine advertising revenue just kept decreasing, and the magazines got thinner and thinner. And yeah, I don't think it was the right time to start a career in that. It's just a very difficult thing to do for an illustrator. And that's why I started thinking about like the stuff that made me happy, which was the EGA art and the pixel art. And I had, of course, because we have the internet, I had an absolute abundance of reference to look at, Sierra and LucasArts. And there are plenty of EGA screens to look at. So I looked at one of my favorites, which is the Colonel's Bequest. I just
Ah,
love that
yes.
kind of that house setting, that dollhouse setting with all the furniture and everything. And I started to recreate rooms like that. And then I started to make a house, and then I started to think about who would live there and the setting and the time period and all the rest of it. And the story kind of grew from there. And when it comes to text parser, yeah, I mean, that's just another aspect of it. It hit at the right time. And I think that partly, but also I just do really enjoy that interface. And I understand why people didn't so much because it was really tough during the time when it was introduced
And I
to have a
guess
really
when we say text
broad text
parser,
dictionary.
we
Yeah.
sorry, yeah, we mean
Yeah.
exactly. You're typing in
Yes.
directly. Look at this,
Yeah.
pick up this, rather than even with the kind of, I guess with LucasArts, you had those icons like the SCUM engine basically.
Hmm.
But this is very much, which kind of gives you more freedom in a way, but it also means you've got to also figure out what you're supposed to do a little bit, I guess.
Yeah, it's not an easy one to play. It's not an even really a particularly easy one to design for because nowadays I watch people play the demo on Twitch, and then I also get feedback and everything. And nowadays I don't have the same space concerns about fitting everything on, 4 floppy disks or anything. I can make the text parser dictionary as big as I want. I can add synonyms of all kinds and everything. And I really have tried to make the text parser as forgiving as possible because I do know it's kind of a big ask. We
Mm.
haven't had them for like the past 30 years or more, I'd say. And I just want people who haven't played it or haven't played a text parser to get introduced to it as well. And I do think there's something to it that is kind of special and magical and does feel limitless. And yeah, I wish to bring that toward more people who've not tried it.
And we were talking there, Andrew, about the potential difficulties of bringing things into print. But I mean, yeah, tell us a bit about Debug. It is in print, isn't it? And it is also online. You can get either. But just tell us a bit more about the magazine and what you cover, and I guess some of the challenges of that, of starting out in this kind of world where there are already these
Yeah.
these giants of the gaming world.
Yeah, I mean there are, but I guess yeah, as Julia was saying, a lot of magazines these days have kind of shrunk.
Yeah,
Their
sadly.
audience has shrunk, but also their page count has shrunk quite significantly. The thickness of the paper has shrunk. Like it's all like
Yeah.
yeah, it's anything to save money. And it became quite obvious that there were still people who wanted to read these kind of magazines, who loved flicking through and reading about games. It's a great way to find new games, especially in the era of Steam, where you kind of get shown what Steam wants you to see because there's the algorithm and everything like that. It's very difficult to find something new unless you're really specifically looking for something. So we kind of wanted to create a magazine that would be kind of, I guess, the antithesis to Steam, where we're showing you things that maybe you hadn't thought about, that Steam maybe wouldn't show you, or in some cases might do, but give you some more information about it as well. So Daniel, who's the founder of Debug, he started it back last year. Wait, hang on, what year are we on? Uh,
This is
yes, it was last year.
2024, Andrew.
Getting confused. Yeah, so he started it early last year, and we're just about to release our sixth issue.
Yeah.
I've been editor for since issue 4.
Yeah.
So we had Dean Mortlock, who is the original editor. He comes from kind of the 90s background of magazines. He edited things like Sega Power, and wrote for a lot of those 90s magazines. So Debug itself has a look and a feel of maybe those kind of nostalgic 90s, early 2000s gaming magazines, giving you lots of previews, reviews, lots of insight into various things. And we very quickly realized that our major audience were developers. There's a huge community of developers out there making games of all sorts, of all shapes and sizes. And they kind of seem to like what we were doing. They liked seeing their games in there. They liked seeing games they hadn't seen. And so we quickly kind of pivoted from maybe a magazine that was kind of more consumer focused to a magazine that was more dev focused, and we have a huge amount of content in there alongside previews and reviews. We have kind of columns from various people within the industry giving you advice and insight into different parts of making a game, or kind of marketing your game, all sorts of things. And yeah, and we have game dev diaries from people like Out of the Bit, who made Full Void, and they're kind of showing the process of making their new game. And we've got all sorts of things in there, kind of mostly for devs these days, but I think that anybody can enjoy it because it is such a wide variety of content, and it's again all about indie games, which are kind of the unsung heroes of the gaming space. AAA gets all the budget, all the money spent on
Yeah, right.
advertising. Indies get nothing, pretty much, apart from what they can afford or what their publishers can afford. There's no magazine, or there was no magazine for indie gaming. Really, there's Patch Magazine, which is also fantastic. If you haven't heard of that, that's worth a read too. But we wanted to come in and do something big for indies and kind of shine the spotlight on as many as we can, and we feature at least 100 indie games in every single issue. So
Right, so Julia, we've got someone really into games here now. So pitch your game. Tell us a bit more about the story about it, and what happens in Crimson Diamond, and what's it all about.
Yeah, absolutely. The Crimson Diamond is a cozy mystery adventure. It's set in northern Ontario, Canada, in the early 1900s. And yeah, when I say cozy mystery, a lot of the influence has been like Agatha Christie and Nancy Drew, and this idea of this genre where there are crimes and things that happen, but it's all kind of done in a way that does feel like cozy and comforting and not too extreme. And it's kind of the thing I kind of gravitated toward the most, I would say, when I was growing up, and the things I still enjoy right now, like stuff like Columbo, things like that, where it's just mostly about the characters and the interactions and finding the logical issues with things. And it has a lot of the things that I find interesting, like mineralogy and geology and local history. And I've really tried to do a lot of research in terms of making that feel like a grounded place. And the research has really helped me to make something that I think will feel like a real place, a real history, because it is based on a lot of those things. And you play Nancy Maple, and there is a diamond claim up in Crimson, Ontario, which is an abandoned garnet mining town. And you get sent up north by your boss, from the Royal Canadian Museum, and you got to see if there are diamonds up there. And of course, there are plenty of characters that stay at the lodge as well that are scheming and have all kinds of things going on. And it's a narrative adventure game, which means it's pretty linear, but I really have tried with the game design to make it something where there are kind of multiple ways to do some things,
Okay,
and
yeah.
also subplots and things that you can find out about that you might not really know about if you just kind of take the critical path through the game. One of the modernizations I've done with the genre is there is a notebook that lets you track progress, so you can see what your objectives are supposed to be. But if you just follow the objectives in the notebook, you're going to miss like a lot of the conversations and everything. You can still get a really good ending, but you're not going to get the best ending, and you're not going to get full points or
Oh, so
whatever.
there are different
If you
endings. Okay, I was
there
gonna,
are
yeah.
there are different
Okay.
endings, yeah. But yeah, it's a matter of like how much information you can glean and learn from exploring and asking people questions. But there's just depending on how you want to play it. If you just want to play through straight, then that's fine too. But there is going to be plenty for people. And I've had people say that they've played the demo through a few times, and then they've watched someone stream it, and they've seen something they'd never seen before. So that's what's exciting about it too. I tried the idea of a text parser interface to begin with is something where you feel like you do have like this limitless playground to play in, and I also wanted the game to feel like that too.
And how's the journey been for you then? I mean, when did you start off making this? I remember I was really excited about it. I met you at Adventure X. I think that was 29. Was it 2019? I think it was
Yes,
2019.
it was
How
2019.
how
Yeah.
has it been for you? Especially because it's mainly it's just yourself making this. That's right.
Yes, except for the music. I didn't
Sure.
do the music, but I did everything else. And I worked on it last night. I still love working on it after all this time. And it's been
That's good.
longer since I guess that's a good sign, but maybe not maybe it's a bad sign. Like maybe I'm too attached to
No.
it. I don't know. But yeah, I've been working on it for a long time, even pre 2019. Fall 2018 is when I tell people the bulk of the development happened. The game is 7 chapters long, and up until November 2018, which is the first time I publicly showed the game, which was at Wordplay in Toronto here. It's a narrative showcase. I only had up to chapter one. And from 2018 November until now, it did the rest of the other 6 chapters. So the bulk of the development happened later. The first, there were probably like 5 or 6 years even preceding that where I was just kind of playing around with it, like
Sure.
just doing a pixel art here and then leaving it and coming back to it after months and everything. And so it was very stop and start, very sporadic at that time. So when people ask me how long I've been working on it, it's definitely been longer than 6 years, but the bulk of the development happened within the last like 5.5 years, I'd say.
And I guess this the same question for you, Andrew, in terms of like how has Debug been since? Were you there from the launch? I know you joined as editor in chief. You said 4 issues in, but were you also helping out before that? And just I guess just what has that been like trying to get the word out about it and
Mm.
the sort of reaction to it?
Yeah. So I wasn't there from the very beginning, but I did write, I think, for at least two. I think I wrote for issue one and issue two, maybe, or issue three. Two of the issues before I kind of came in. So I was aware of it. I've known Daniel for quite a while. But then I took over for issue four, and yeah, it was an interesting thing because I guess what we had was we had like an editor who was from the old school of editing, and editing was what he did, and that was it. And what you find with independent publishing is you kind of have to have your fingers in all of the pies. You
Mm.
can't just be an editor, you have to do everything. So you know, you need to do marketing, you need to be out there spreading the word, like you say, you need to be doing all sorts of things. So I kind of came in and I was like, okay, and I was thrown in the deep end because I think that literally the week after I joined, I was straight at an event selling magazines to people. Bear in mind, I hadn't edited an issue yet. I was like, just got there. I was like selling this product, but straight away I already believed in it because you know I knew that the idea of kind of giving indies another platform to shine was you know one that I wanted to make the best it could be. So yeah, it's been an interesting thing. We've kind of grown issue on issue
Yeah.
because we've been able to get more people to see what we're doing, whether that be other developers or whether that be you know just gamers who are interested in indie games. But yeah, it's been tough because there is this thing, I guess there's a I don't know if it's a stigma, but there's this thing about indie magazines, I suppose, that they're a little bit rough around the edges.
Sure.
That yeah, that you know maybe they're not designed well. Maybe the writing's great, but maybe the design isn't good, or maybe the design's good, but the writing isn't great, and they don't seem to get both at the same time. And there are very few indie magazines that kind of get both together and create something that's really fun to read and fun to look at. And I think we've achieved that with Debug. Our designer Kate has done like a fantastic job of kind of capturing like a fun spirit, and you know giving us these fantastic spreads. Like in the last issue, in issue 5, we had a feature about the play date, and the developers who work on those games, which you know some incredible games that come out of such. I mean, like yourself, Julie, you're working with like such a limited palette, and then Playdate is even
Yeah.
limited further to one bit. And you know they're able to kind of create these incredible games. But how do you put that on a page? Because it's all black and white. You know, you can't. So we had to. So Kate had to come up with like a way of showing the Playdate in a really vibrant and colourful way, and she did. She created this really beautiful spread, and yeah, it's stuff like that. It's showing the games in their best light and being out there and being like I don't know what's the word for it, being the not the voice but like a voice in the crowd to shout about these incredible games, and that's what's getting us further, I think, and that's what I love doing. So yeah,
Yeah, and I heard about you guys from the awards ceremony that you did
yes.
to celebrate indie games, and I was like, "What is this magazine?" And then I found out about you. I'm guessing you're gonna do that again because it looks like it was a big success.
It was a really big success. Yeah, we were surprised at how many people turned out and how many people like the amount of submissions that we had. Like, bear in mind, there's only 2 or 3 of us, and we were like, oh yeah, we'll do an award ceremony to kind of celebrate the indie dev community. And the reason we did that is because we'd seen things like the Game Awards and stuff where they would give out a couple of like small indie prizes, but they would give the people receiving them like either no time to talk or
Mm.
like 5 seconds to say thank you. So we wanted to kind of have an award ceremony specifically all about indie game developers. So we always said, you know, it's about the games and the people who make them. And we didn't have, you know, wrap it up sign. We were kind of like, you can talk for as long as you want. Thank who you want. We want, this is your time because, you know, you've won this award. But yeah, we had so many submissions that it took us so long to go through. Deputy editor Dan Morris, he bless him, he took on the job of going through them and making sure they were all legitimate because we did have people submit things like Resident Evil 4, which is not an
Okay.
indie game. So we had to make sure that they were relevant in the right date period, all that kind of stuff. So he did a great job there. And then we had people who shortlisted them down for us because we must have had in some categories we had hundreds of entries. Then we had to shortlist those down to I think we had 6 to 8 in the shortlist. Then to give to our judges. So we formed a panel of judges from all over the industry. So developers, journalists, people from PR, people from publishers. We gave them all the games to play and make the decision. I think on the vast majority of the awards. Um, and yeah, and they were the people who just decided. We had no say apart from Debug Game of the Year. We didn't have a say about what won because we wanted to be fairly impartial to the whole thing. So we had those decide. We also had a couple of charity partners who decided on a couple of the awards, which was great. Yeah, it was just a really great. It was just a really fun and kind of yeah. I don't know what the words are, but it was fun. I enjoyed it,
I
and I
really
think
want to
everybody else
come
did.
next year or
And we
this
will
year.
definitely be doing another one.
Good.
Yeah, for
I'm
sure.
glad. I'm going to try and make it this time. I got a ticket and then I wasn't able to make it. So apologies for that if you're like, where is she?
How dare you? How dare you?
We were talking a little bit about kind of Twitch earlier as well, and how that can be used as a tool. And I know, Julie, you were saying, and I know you stream on Twitch because I've raided you and I've been in your stream. Do you think that's a good tool for developers? Would you recommend that to especially indie developers who, I think it really helps with that kind of thing potentially to see the connection with the game and to see the person who makes it, and for players to know a bit more about the developer. Was that something you did to try and get the game out, or just because you enjoy Twitch, or what was the reasons behind it?
The initial reason that I started streaming was COVID, which is apparently a fairly common reason for a
Yeah,
lot of
same.
streamers. There we go. Yeah. I was just talking to another streamer like last on Friday, and she said the same thing. She started around COVID as well. And it was a matter of I wasn't even thinking about trying it. I didn't think I'd even enjoy it, but the musician on the project, Dan Polakar, he is a touring musician. And during COVID, there was no touring. And he said we should do something. We should like try Twitch. And I'm like, okay, fine, we'll try Twitch. And I ended up really liking it. And part of it was this idea of having a place to socialize once a week and have a bit of a community come around, and we all kind of get together and talk about games and other things. And that was part of it. And that's been a super benefit, especially during COVID, like the height of it. But then there's also this aspect of, I get to show people the process of the game, which has been super valuable because, as Andrew said, we don't have a lot of like marketing bucks really to spend on awareness. And this, Twitch is free to be on and everything. And you can even make a few bucks here or there, like, every so often when you reach the every month or whatever. I don't know if they have a threshold even, but yeah, so that's a benefit. Also, this idea of I play retro games on my stream, and then I find retro streamers to raid, and it's a really good for discoverability to just finding other people who do the same things as you, and then getting people excited about the game that I'm working on, and then potentially maybe they'll play the game when it comes out. So that part of it's also something. It all came from this idea of maybe trying to be social, but there have been so many other benefits to it apart from that. The streamers that I've gotten to know have been people who they'll play Quest for Glory. They'll be playing, Conquer the Longbow. They'll be playing Sierra games and LucasArts games. And so this idea of, okay, well, if they enjoy this type of game, then maybe they'll like what I'm making. And then that's kind of how that can start. And it's a really kind of organic way of getting to know people. And then I'll be, as I'm working during the day or the evening, I'll have, like, I'm watching tons of people, play things. And so mentioning that there are so many games, even from, not even mentioning new games that I am still, I'm excited about some new games too, but there's just so many games from the past that I've never even heard of or haven't played.
It's crazy.
It's crazy. But the good thing about watching people play it is that you can kind of feel like you're experiencing it, but then, you can be productive at the same time, which is kind of nice. But yeah, Twitch has been really good for so many different reasons. And yeah, just having people kind of get to know the kind of person I am, the kind of developer I am. And I think in terms of the benefit of being indie versus having those AAA bucks, one of the few benefits that we have above the AAA people is that, there's a name and a face and a person making this thing. And
Yeah.
then you can get it connected to that. And I think that can be nice. Apart from, I wouldn't mind AAA bucks, but that's not in the future. So.
No, you're saying that's it now, Julia. Yeah. Well, you never know. I mean, Andrew, I don't know. Have you ever used Twitch much, or can you see Debug potentially ever going on Twitch or doing anything like that? I know that's just more work probably for you, but
Yeah, well, I mean, we did use Twitch a little bit when we just as we were doing the awards.
Right, yeah.
We did like weekly updates on how that was going and what was going on. We haven't done it since, but I literally started streaming on Twitch about 3 or 4 weeks ago
Oh, cool.
myself.
I'll drop
So
you a
I've
follow.
started to, yeah. So
Yeah.
this evening, even I'm finishing off Still Wakes the Deep,
Nice.
on stream. So I'm playing indie games. I'm playing retro stuff because I'm a huge retro fan. I busted out my Xbox the other week and I was playing Jet Set Radio Future,
Oh, nice.
which is a game I haven't played for a long time. But yeah, so yeah, I think it's great. I think for indies especially, the discoverability that you get through Twitch is so good. You know, even if I mean, it's great to see the dev playing their game or other people playing their game because, like you say, it's fantastic to get that personal touch. You don't get that with AAAs. You know, you might see the director of the game give a bit of a speech, but you can't go talk to them. You can't kind of, you know, drop into their Twitch and go hi, you know, and ask them questions and just chat about games. So that's fantastic, first of all. And it's the same with events, right? Like you're talking about going to Adventure X and stuff like that. And when we did the awards, we also did like an event with indie game devs there. Having a place you can physically come to, see the game, and talk to the dev at the same time. You can see who they are, ask them why they made it, ask them why they're passionate about it. You know, that's the best thing ever. I mean, you go to big events like, you know, EGX or something, and very rarely will you see the developer of the game there because they're bigger games. They're not going to go to that kind of thing. So you play the game and you go, oh, this is a cool game. But then you go to a smaller event with indies, you play the game, and then you talk about the game, and you get more insight into the game and how it was made and the process. And you know, it makes you. I feel like for me at least, it makes me appreciate the game a lot more, and it makes me take more notice of it. So if it's a game that's not out yet, I'll remember, oh, I was at this event or I watched this Twitch stream and I talked to the developer, and then you kind of put it on your wish list, and rather than it just sitting in your wish list and you forgetting about it, you kind of remember it every so often and go, oh, yeah, I want to go check if that game's come out yet. So yeah, all that kind of stuff is fantastic, and hopefully when I stream some indie games, I'll be doing my very small part because I have an incredibly small following so far. But that's what I'd like to do, you know, is just show people that these games are, you know, what they are and why you should be playing them. So.
Now, I will say the one downside as a punter or like if I'm covering this for Adventure Game Hotspot or things like that is when there is a developer there, when you mess up, or I always seem to cause bugs in these games, or I always seem to like not be able to work out the puzzles, and then you can see the developer there like, oh no, like getting really anxious, and it's like, it's okay, it's fine, it's this happens all the time, don't worry.
No, Laura, I'm so grateful when that happens. That happens literally every time I watch someone play just the demo, which has been out for ages, and I think I cannot believe there are bugs in this. But it's just, you know, talking about limited resources for indies.
Of course.
A streamer that's like free live play testing.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't really get any better than that. And so I always try to show up to. I can't always do it, but I always try to show up for the streams because I learn something every single time.
I'm glad to hear that, yeah, because I know some developers I mean, I agree. I think that is a good way of looking at it, to be honest, especially when you've got a demo out and you know you want to see how people react to things. And I think that's another like good side of conferences, like you say, a developer can, you know, take their game there and see how people react. Of course, it can be quite expensive sometimes, I'm sure. I mean, I don't know if you guys are planning to go to any this year. I don't know if you're Julia, if you plan to show the Crimson Diamond at other places?
Well, I've been going to be showing the demo near the end of this month at the Adventure Game Hotspot Fanfare. So there's that.
Lovely.
Speaking of Adventure Game Hotspot, yeah, so that's going to be a lot of fun. But in between then and launch date, which is August 15th, I don't really have anything else planned. I have to just like lock in to
that's
finishing
fair.
this thing up. Yeah.
And Andrew, I believe before you said you were going to develop. Have you got any other plans apart from that?
Going to develop. We'll be going to EGX, but we always go in like a non-official capacity. We're just kind of wandering around, seeing what's there.
Covert.
Kind of yeah, exactly. Go talk to people as and when. But yeah, I think the only other thing I think this year that I should be going to is the Bilbao Game Conference. I went last year, and that was an incredibly cool place to go. So yeah, but I think we've done a lot this year already. Like I was in Sweden for an entire month. The whole of May I was in Sweden doing events and stuff. So yeah, I think I'm mostly evented out.
Yes,
but
that's fair.
those
I think
two,
that's fair
yeah.
enough. I guess talking about standing out from the crowd, I'm interested as well, Andrew. How do you know, what do you look for when you're covering these games? Because, you know, it must be quite difficult. I know you're saying, you know, we want to put a spotlight on these games, but how do you decide what gets in, really?
Yeah, that is a tough one.
Yeah.
Because there are so many. There are so many games, and even though we want to shine a spotlight on as many as we can, there's just no way that we can always cover every single game that comes out. There's just such a plethora of games every single month, and we're quarterly. So if we were monthly, maybe we'd have more of a chance. But again, like you're saying, don't want to create too much work for ourselves. There's only a few of us. But quarterly, we have to pick. What we think are the best titles, but also what we think are going to be interesting to the people reading. Because it's not always about us and our own, what we like as gamers. I'm not going to go because if I was going to pick everything I like as a gamer, the magazine would mostly be full of horror games, and which is not everybody's cup of tea. So it's kind of looking at, I guess. The art style is always a big thing. We're talking about a magazine; it's a visual medium.
Yeah.
So to stand out for a magazine, at least, you have to have an art style that's different or interesting. If it's another 3D platformer, which there's many of, then you have to do something very special to stand out. Whereas if you're doing a game like Julia, where your art style is incredibly kind of specifics to a point in time and a type of genre, and it looks really good on the page, which looking at the screenshots I've seen looks so good, that would look great on a page in a magazine. Looking at something like, what is it, like Shim, I don't know if you've heard of
Oh,
Shim.
yes. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
got an incredible art style that would look great on pages of magazines. But it's not just about that, because if we did that, then there'd be huge amounts of games that would never get in. So it has to be something that we think people would like to play. And quite often, the way that we get those in is, we get all of the PR stuff, as most journalists would do, but we also get, our email is open, and if anybody ever wants to email us about their game, can't guarantee we'll ever get back to them because we receive so many emails. But when we go through, we'll see what games there are, and we'll pick out ones that we really like and respond and say we'd love to cover this. Our Discord as well, we have loads of developers in our Discord, so we're always encouraging them to post screenshots and videos of what they're working on, and we'll pick out games from there. So really, we get things from all over the place, and quite often Daniel, the boss, as it were, will just send me random messages going, "Have you seen this game?" And I'm like, "Not yet, but I'll look now," and then that'll end up in the magazine because he's just trawling through Steam and all sorts of other places, and I do the same. So yeah, it's a tough one, but we do our best to include as diverse a range of games as we can each issue that we think look great, that will look great in the magazine, but also that the people reading it will really want to go and see for themselves.
And I guess the same for you, Julia. What techniques have you used to try and stand out from the crowd a bit? I mean, obviously, as Andrew says, it does help that the colors are very striking and it's a slightly unusual
Yes.
graphic style. But I don't know, are there any other kind of techniques you've been using or trying to use?
Yeah, definitely the EGA is
Yeah.
the brightest of the absolute bright. Then one of the limitations is there's not really anything that you can really call a natural color for skin tones in of any kind really in the game. So people will look at her bright red face, and that it's unusual, but I mean you get used to it eventually. But yeah, that catches people's eye. Yeah, it's discoverability as an indie is really tough, and I've been really trying regularly to keep up different types of ways that I can market myself. Stuff like I have a monthly newsletter. Speaking of publication, I've got like an e-newsletter that I email out sort of mid-month every month, and I've done that for like 70 issues in a row. So that's one of the things. I also I stream, which has also really been really good. So I stream actually, Andrew, I'm streaming tonight as well. So I
Nice.
don't know. I think
And I'm
you're
also
on UK
streaming
time,
tonight,
and you're
so
also streaming. Okay, amazing. I'm probably going to be starting.
start a little raid train. We can.
Yes.
Exactly. I start 8 p.m. Eastern, which is probably way late for you folks. But yeah, so I'll be streaming tonight, and then also I've been doing Instagram Reels like 3 times a week now. I've started to do that for the past
Yes.
few weeks,
Do you think how
and
have you found that is because a lot of people Instagram, TikTok, that seems to be another way, but you have to be doing it quite a lot, I think, and it can be a lot of extra work.
yes, it has been a bit of extra work. Like, fortunately, with the reels, it's like a minute long. So I
Right.
do like, which I guess even is long for a reel. I mean, nowadays with TikToks, everything you can get like really, really short things. But yeah, I do them for a minute, and which means they don't take too much prep, although it can take a few takes. And then I just put some stickers and captions and stuff on it. I'm maybe a couple hours and then that's 3 times a week. So yeah, that's kind of been a bit much, but I'm still feel like, yeah, there's tons of people who've never heard of my game, even though I feel like I've been relentlessly marketing it for the past 6 years, but there's still tons of people who don't know about it. And Instagram and things like TikTok as well are really supposed to be good for new people finding it. So that's been something I wanted to try leading up to launch. And so I feel like I can hopefully keep up this 3 times a week thing up until launch, and then we'll see. But even bigger things like the launch trailer was on IGN Live
Yes.
in the beginning of June. So things like that brought a lot of new eyes to it as well. It's just trying everything. And whenever someone new finds the game, one of my questions is that usual, business question of, oh, how did you hear about this? Because I want to know, because I want to kind of say, okay, well, I can try to do fewer things, because then if everyone's coming from one or two things, then they can focus on those. But then people say everything. So you just have to just do everything, which is kind of unfortunate. But it's when as an indie as well, another really good thing about it is it's your thing, right? So you're super
Yeah.
motivated, you really care about it, which means that for me it's not, I'm not going to say it's work, because it's definitely work, and I probably work on that part of it just as much as the actual game itself. But it's part of, I enjoy it, I
Yeah.
still do. I know not every dev feels the same way, but I enjoy hopefully getting more people to learn about it that might like it. So that's how I feel about it.
Is there any kind of bit of advice, if you were to go back to the beginning of you making this, or this kind of journey of creating it, that you would give yourself?
Um, s- Start small.
Yeah.
This is my first game that I've ever made,
Yeah.
and um, it was a well, I can't even say it was a mistake to do this, because I didn't plan on making it a game. It kind of accidentally became a game, but yeah, it's going to be like a standard like 5 to 10 hour plus experience, which is pretty big for a first game. And whenever anyone says, "Oh, I saw one of your videos and stuff, and I've been motivated to make a game," I always say start small, because there's so much to learn. I still don't know the whole process. I have never launched anything. So if you do something small, you can get through that whole process from beginning to end, and then you're going to learn a lot. And then for the next one, you're going to be better at everything. And I already feel that way. Like, oh, the next one I'll be better at everything. But then I'll probably try something more complicated. But that's my one piece of advice is that. And then also my second piece of advice is get feedback,
Mm.
especially if you're working on your own or a small team. It can be really easy to get tunnel vision, or not really, you can't, it's impossible for you to see everything and think from everybody's perspective. So those two things I would say is start small, and don't be afraid of getting feedback. Like, the feedback is good because also you get connected with other developers. And as Andrew, you said, like, developers are like really kind of motivated people, and they're really interested in things. And then when you get them and you can get to know people, and you all have this a lot of stuff in common in terms of like the different stages of getting through a game and how to make it, that it's helpful in so many ways, and also socially super helpful. Yeah, you can go to these events, and you can get excited because, oh, I know people at these events that I've only met online, and then you can meet them in person, and that's amazing. It just kind of makes the whole event like 5 times better if you know
Yeah.
people.
Totally.
Yeah, so definitely, like, don't be afraid of reaching out and getting feedback, because if you're making a game, you're probably going to eventually want to release it, which means you're going to want to put it out in the public. If you don't want to, and like that's not your thing, you just want to make stuff and then just move on to something else, and that's absolutely fine too. But if you want to release something, you're going to want to get people's eyes on it before that happens. Not only just for feedback, but also like for telling more people about it.
Yeah.
And don't be shy about that if that's what you're into. And you don't have to necessarily be on Twitch either. Like, you can pick and choose how you want to do that, but
There's
I do
so
think it's
much.
important. Yeah.
I mean, Andrew, I guess having, covering a lot of these games and also meeting developers, do you have any tips or advice or things you would say as well?
I ask every single developer that I chat to. I always ask what would you advise people to do if they're making, like, starting out making a game. It's
Yeah.
like this the one question at the end of every interview that I ask. And I just went, so as I mentioned, I was in Sweden, and for 3 weeks of that I was at this place called Spell Collective, which is like a place where indie devs go to surround themselves with other indie devs, and they live and they work in this space together.
Oh,
And
wow.
I asked like 20 of them what would they say, and I think they mostly agree with Julia, which is start small, don't go big. Like, if you're learning, especially if you don't know much about designing or creating a game, if you've never really done it before, just do something small that, just a small project that, somebody walking, and maybe like, just something really tiny for yourself. If it expands from that, great. Maybe have a little, itch.io game that you can have to one side and show people. But yeah, but for every person who says that, to be honest, there's another person who went, I would recommend this, but I didn't do that.
Yeah.
I just went straight on. I went big. And I think it really depends on the person. I think the biggest, it's always going to depend on who you are and how you work. But I think the biggest thing is, don't do it alone. And that goes, to the feedback thing that you were mentioning, Julia, is, it's such, especially if you're doing it in your room at home, it can be such an insular thing. And of course it's your idea, it's what you want to do, of course that's going to happen quite a lot, but there can be such a thing as being too insular, and you get into your own head, you kind of start worrying about things, or you're doing things going in a direction that maybe you could move away from. So talk to people, talk to other developers. There are meetups in basically every city where you can go and speak to other developers, show them your game, they'll show you theirs, and you can get feedback from them. Do that. If you're too shy to do that, find an online place, find a Discord server, find something where you can just get together with other developers and chat about developing games, because it's just so useful to have that camaraderie of people around you who are doing the same thing, understand what you're going through, and yeah, that's my probably biggest thing is do that. However else you do it is up to you, but as long as you've got somebody behind you, I think that's the biggest thing.
I think that's a really good point, because yes, I can imagine it must get quite difficult, not just in terms of kind of persevering, but also just like Julia says, getting feedback and knowing and being able to improve what you're doing, and knowing what you're doing, you're kind of going along the right path. So yeah, definitely. I mean, like Discord is great, as you said, it's great for that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I guess speaking for that, we're nearly got all the time we have left for this episode. But in terms of sharing, links about yourselves, I will put that underneath this video. But if there's places you want people to find you, I mean, your Twitch, I guess, Julia, or where should people find you guys?
Yeah, I have my Twitch is _Maple Mystery, and I do stream on Tuesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern. And yeah, thecrimsondiamond.com. You'll find all my social media stuff. I'm on Twitter, Mastodon, Blue Sky. There's a Facebook page. I've got an Instagram as well. I've been doing those reels. And yeah, I have a YouTube channel where I put my VODs after the fact from Twitch in case people's time zones don't necessarily line up. But yeah, that's pretty much where you can find me in all those places.
And Andrew.
So Debug, I think we've got weird things different for different things, but you can find us at teamdebug.com.
Great.
Is probably the best place to go. All of our links are there to our Discord, to our Twitter, all things like that. So go there, and also that's where you can kind of buy the magazine either digitally or physically. And for myself, I'm on Twitter or X if we must, at Oddment84, also on Twitch at Oddment84. And if you fancy following at We Are Gamebound, that is a new project that I'm working on, so take a look.
Can you say anything about that, or?
Well, yeah, we just announced we're creating a magazine, basically
Another
mostly
one?
about retro games. Yeah, another one.
You're
Another
magazine
one.
mad.
Well, yeah, this was what I do. So that's called Generations, and that is going to be going to Kickstarter hopefully next month.
Nice.
So yeah.
And what kind of? You said that's a retro sort of magazine.
Yeah, so it's kind of it's a look at every generation of gaming. So each issue will be like a couple of articles about every single generation from the first to present, and it'll be like long form essays, discussions with developers, all sorts of stuff. We've got very cool stuff for the first issue, which we haven't announced yet, but we will at some point. A really cool developer that we managed to talk to, who may or not be from Japan. That's all I'm going to say right now. Is from Japan, may or may not be. Is like, yeah. Of course it is. But yeah, it's kind of looking at that, and the tagline for the whole project is how gaming's past shaped our future. So kind of looking at how what happened in the past, the kind of systems and the graphics and everything have kind of influenced how gaming is today. So yeah.
Oh, exciting. Well, yeah, I'll definitely check that out. I'll follow you on Twitch as well. But I don't know if there's anything else you guys want to add. I really appreciate you coming on and chatting about it. And like I said, I'll put all the links below so that everyone can check you out. But yeah, is there anything else you want to add or anything?
If I could just thank you, Laura, for this, and thank you, Andrew, as well, because both of you are doing this thing that for indie devs is like worth its weight in gold, which is like to support indie developers, to boost indie developers, talk about them. Yeah, there's nothing better than that. Like we don't have we don't have a lot of money to do this, and so when we have people like you folks who are passionate about this and enthusiastic and can put this stuff out, it's the best thing ever. So thank you so much.
Oh, I mean, I'm sure Andrew is the same. I do it just because I love indie games, so it's quite easy.
True.
But yeah, no. But yeah, thank you so much, guys. I really appreciate it. As I've said, I am also on Twitch. I might as well drop that thing as well. Twitch.tv// crossup. I do play a lot of indie games, so check me out on that, and check me out for the next episode of this, which hopefully be a little bit shorter in coming. There was a couple of issues with my computer, which meant that the first episode and the second episode has been a little bit of time. But yeah, thanks everyone for listening or watching, and thank you to Andrew and Julia.